Remember when everyone had something to say about Zion Williamson, when Stephen A was constantly bullying this man for his weight?
Get your stuff together. You are too great to be walking around looking as rotund as you're looking. The word out on Zion Williamson is that he'll eat the table.
Well, Zion Williamson heard all the shit that was being talked. And not only has Zion Williamson heard the shit talking, but he is back for revenge. This is the most critical time when it comes to setting up for the NBA playoffs. The teams that are going to make the playoffs make their pushes, the contenders are starting to figure out where they're going to be, and this is the moment in time where you need to get hot. And the New Orleans Pelicans are very hot right now. In the past 10 games, they have a record of 8-2, and Zion Williamson has been playing better than he's ever played before. And currently at the time of recording this video, the New Orleans Pelicans are sitting at the 5 seed in a very stacked Western Conference. They're only 1 game away from the 4-seeded Clippers, and honestly, I think that's where they're going to end up. But why is New Orleans doing this good right now? While statistically Zion Williamson is not having the best year of his career, he is having a good season, especially within this past month or two. And I think one of the main reasons for this is because over the past couple months, Zion Williamson has been losing a ton of weight. It's being reported that Zion Williamson over the past couple months has lost about 25 pounds. Hence why if you watch Zion, he looks a lot more mobile. Oh, and it's also why he's able to do shit like this. But the thing is, Zion has always been good. We always knew that Zion was the #1 option. We knew that he can score at will. We knew on the defensive side he was a good player, and we knew that he was good at just about everything. Of course, the weight issues and the injury problems, those would always fuck with him, but this year he's not really dealing with that. Even with him losing weight, this isn't the most impressive thing to me. What impresses me the most is how this roster has been underlooked the entire year. And in the words of my boy Six Man, you should not be sleeping on this team. There are 2 players that the Pelicans have that honestly make me love watching this team. That's Trigger Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. I'm going to start with Herb Jones because I am a very big fan of him. I remember last year I made a video about the Pelicans, and one of the people I talked about in that video was Herb Jones, and I remember I assessed him as a great defender. I thought he was a great role player that was going to help out the other star players on the team. However, it seems like ever since then, Herb Jones has elevated his game. Not only has he continued to be a great defender that New Orleans is definitely going to need come playoff time, but this man has worked his ass off, and he is now a really good three-point shooter. This is a guy who last season was shooting about 33% from 3 and wasn't really looking to take a 3 ball. However, this year he's shooting 43% from 3, and if you give him the opportunity, he's gonna make the shot. And now, while he's averaging about 11 points per game, which is the best he's ever done in his 3 seasons in the NBA, I'm not necessarily looking at Herb as someone that needs to score the ball. Again, if the shot is there, the shot is there. It's great to know that he can hit it. However, what I love about Herbert Jones is his defense. I love the way he's able to play on ball. I think he is one of those players that, again, come playoff time, he's going to be important. But someone else that I love on the Pelicans is Trey Murphy, and in fact, besides Zion Williamson, this is probably my favorite player on the Pelicans. So similar to Herb Jones, Trey Murphy is also someone who is a great 3-and-D player. The difference is I would say Trey Murphy is a little bit better on the offensive side, and it's players like this that I believe contribute to a championship winning team. If I were an NBA GM and I had to build my NBA roster, I feel like the rotation would consist of a lot of 3-and-D guys. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado, even Jordan Hawkins. It's players like this that I think build up the rotation and makes New Orleans so dangerous. Now, I want to come back actually to the big 3 of the Pelicans: Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum. It is these 3 guys that if they're not dominating, well, the entire team cannot. And I think the main focus of this video has to be Zion Williamson. And I think that's due to the fact that, number 1, the amount of shit that I've had to hear about Zion, I think has been ridiculous. I've always been a believer that as long as Zion can get healthy and he can lose some weight, he's going to be dominant. And while statistically this season, he's only averaging what, like 22 points per game, which I mean, sure, that's okay, but I don't care about his stats right now. I care about what he's done in the past couple months and the way he's been progressing as a player. I think it's pretty obvious, but when you become more mobile as a player, you're able to do a lot more things. And I think the game looks a lot more easier for Zion than it has in the past couple years. I've actually been watching a couple Pelicans games lately, and I'm not gonna lie, the way I've seen Zion dominate has been happy to see, because Zion is one of my favorite players. Fun fact, I've had a Zion Williamson jersey hung up in my bedroom for the past 3 years, and I've never really taken it down, and now I really don't plan to. Now, something I actually want to talk about when it comes to his scoring is the way he's able to drive to the rim. Now, we all know Zion is very athletic, and of course, we could see the highlight dunks to be like, oh my god, wow, he did it again. But seriously, the way Zion is able to get to the rim and then be able to spin off a defender or be able to create an amazing look for himself is something we don't really talk about. Like, I'll see Zion absorb a bunch of contact, yet he's able to be able to find a good shot for himself. It's weird. He has great touch, he has mobility, and he has a lot of strength. That on top top of his amazing handle that Zion has developed over the past couple months. Zion has usually had a solid handle, but I don't know, just the way he's able to move a lot more mobile, it makes his handle look so much better. This might be a hot take, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I think Zion at his peak can be around the same level as a guy like Giannis. The difference is that Zion is a little bit shorter because I think Giannis is like 3 to 4 inches taller than him, but I watch their games and they're pretty similar. Again, I know it's a hot take, but I need you to understand where I view Zion and where I think he can be at in the future. Also, let's give a quick shout out to Stephen A. Smith because it turns out bullying can actually prove to work. I know a lot of people don't like bullying and they think it's bad, which I do agree with that to a point. However, this man Stephen A. body shamed the shit out of Zion to the point where he's lost a ton of weight. And look, it's starting to benefit him more than ever. But all jokes aside, Zion is the healthiest we've ever seen him in his career, and I'm happy for him, especially because there is a playoff run that the Pelicans are about to make that I cannot wait to see. I mean, do you guys remember, I believe in 2022, when the Pelicans and Suns faced in the first round and the Pelicans gave the Suns a run for their money? I think that was only a small percentage of what this team could do, because I mean, that team was not healthy at all. And now we fast forward to 2024, it seems like this team is healthy and ready. I've always believed that the Pelicans could be a top 4 team in the Western Conference when fully healthy and fully at their peak. And right now, they're starting to hit that mark. And the craziest thing is, I haven't even talked about Jonas Valanciunas or Brandon Ingram or even CJ McCollum. So I just want to say a couple things about each of these guys real quick. Brandon Ingram, for one, while statistically he's not having his best year, he's still doing pretty good. In fact, you could argue that at the 4 position in the Western Conference, Brandon Ingram might have been a snub come All-Star time. But I'm not surprised. I feel like Brandon Ingram, his entire career has always been overlooked. I mean, this is someone who is 6'10", can score the basketball well, can shoot just about anywhere on the court, and he's also a very underrated playmaker, something that nobody wants to talk about. In fact, you could argue he is one of the best playmakers when it comes to being a wing player. And I mean, CJ McCollum, for being the 3rd option on this team, he's doing great. He's shooting over 40% from 3. He's doing okay as far as shooting numbers, at least for CJ McCollum standards, but regardless, he's still a great 3rd option for the Pelicans. Now, I will say I am using the word 3rd option kind of loosely because the way the Pelicans play is a little bit different this year. I feel like they're not playing through a star. They're not playing through Zion having to average 28 points per game for them to be a good team. Zion could have 30 on any given night, but so could Brandon Ingram or even a guy like Jordan Hawkins who's done it multiple times this year. They have guys on their roster that are able to go off at any single moment. They have a load of rotation players that are ready to be 3-point snipers and great on the defensive side. I mean, let me remind you guys, this is a team that is number 10 in offense and number 10 in defense. That is something that usually championship caliber teams can do, and the Pelicans are a very championship caliber team. And what sucks about them is they're not getting talked about. And I know what you're gonna say. Oh, Spex, it's the Pelicans, they're not good for TV ratings, blah blah blah. And I mean, it's the same thing I said in my Cavs video when I talked about them a couple months ago. And honestly, it's fair to talk about ratings and things of that nature, but I think it's a little bit different. Within the past 4 years, the most controversial thing that has happened in New Orleans has been Zion Williamson. Whether it was the weight issues, whether it was that Mariah Mills situation, which by the way, I'm still not over that. What the fuck was that? No, but seriously, every single controversy that has had to do with this team has been a negative light for Zion. And now that Zion is finally doing good, now that the team is doing good, now that the team is okay, it seems like everyone's on the same page. They're ready to go fight for a championship. They're not even being talked about. Why? Because it's a positive story. And y'all already know, NBA media is not positive. And look, this is not a paid shout out, by the way. It might sound like that, but I swear to God, it's not. But JJ Redick and Braun literally just dropped a podcast. I think it's called like Mind the Game or something like that. And if you love basketball, by the way, I would check this out. But also, I think this is the type of discourse we need to have, and that's why I made this video. My whole channel, I've talked about teams in positive lights. Of course, I've had my negative moments like on my own team, but I want to talk about the good shit about basketball. I want to talk about the teams doing well. I want to talk about the players going on a run. And overall, I just want to break down the game. I know this might not be a normal outro to what I usually do, but let me just end by saying this. Zion and the Pelicans are back for revenge because a lot of y'all wanted to talk your shit. And Stephen A, I think you're one of the greatest to ever do it, but respectfully, you can say some of the dumbest shit sometimes. But this time, I think you actually did your thing because you unlocked something in Zion that nobody wants to see. And I'm not really talking about from a fan's perspective because as a fan, I'm loving it here. I'm more so talking about the players on the court because Zion, when he is healthy and at its peak, that is a very scary man. And with the NBA playoffs almost here, I promise you, if you're a team in the West, you do not want to face the Pelicans.